To a narcissist, your boundary isn't a request, it's a rebellion. So it raises a question. What really happens when you try to set a boundary with a narcissist? Hi, I'm Kyle Hackley, attorney and author of Undercurrent, a novel where Annie shares her story of escaping a narcissistic marriage. Let's talk about boundaries and why narcissists react to them so strongly. The best way I can describe it is the narcissist experiences the boundary as a rejection, as a betrayal, as a direct threat to their control. Because when you say no, I'm not going to tolerate this, what the narcissist actually hears is, I'm not letting you run this show anymore. And that right there is where the punishment begins. The narcissist won't call it punishment, though. In fact, they'll probably act like you are the problem. But the truth is, your boundary challenged their ego. And instead of respecting it, they go into damage control of you. Now let's talk about what that punishment really looks like. Sometimes it's loud, yelling rage, making accusations. It can be terrifying at times. Now in Undercurrent, there's a scene where Annie's dog chews a leg of an old chair. That's a small thing, one of those things that dogs sometimes do. But Santino erupts. First, he punishes Andy by taking the dog from her. Then he reminds her who's in charge. He holds her upside down and makes it clear he controls her world. But punishment doesn't have to be loud to hurt. And more often, that punishment is cold. It's silent treatment, emotional withdrawal, subtle sabotage. You might suddenly find that they've stopped supporting you, or they start talking behind your back, or even twisting your words, making it look like you're unstable to other people. Of course, they're going to gaslight you into thinking that you're the cruel one and that they're going to call you unreasonable and selfish. That's kind of a given, even when all you did was say no. And here's what makes it even more damaging. Over time, it starts to work, because when someone calls you names like that again and again, you start to believe them. And it's pretty normal to start to think, well, was I too harsh? Should I have explained it better? Or am I just not trying hard enough to make my spouse happy? And if I did that, all this would blow over. And you tiptoe around them. That causes you to doubt yourself, and you stop setting boundaries altogether, not because you don't need them, but because the punishment just hurts too much. It isn't worth it. And that's the cycle, and it's designed to keep you quiet and compliant. Here's what Annie did when she finally stood up to her husband, Santino. She said no. And it certainly wasn't related to anything important. She simply refused to wear the dress that he randomly grabbed from her closet. Instead, she stood her ground and wore the dress that she already had on. In that moment, Annie began to see that her boundaries weren't really so bad, and they didn't make her a mean person. Setting them was a sign that she was beginning to figure things out, a sign that she was healing. Santino tried to make her feel like she had done something terribly wrong, but Annie's no wasn't wrong. It was the beginning of her freedom. So what can someone do when they're in the grip of a narcissist that way? First, recognize that the pushback you're feeling is not a fact. It's a tactic. You don't need to explain yourself endlessly. You don't need to defend your right to take care of yourself or to have your own opinion. Of course not. Now, what you can try is the gray rock method. That means becoming emotionally unreactive around the narcissist. I know it's hard, but no drama, no engagement. You give them nothing to feed off of. If it's safe and your circumstances allow it, maybe you can go limited contact, which means just reducing interactions to the bare minimum, keeping things brief, calm, and purposeful. But most of all, remind yourself that this discomfort doesn't mean that you're wrong. It means that you're growing. And the more you honor your own boundaries, the more you will rebuild your self-trust. And that's what the narcissist fears. If you'd like to share your thoughts on this episode, I welcome you to leave a comment or send me an email. Your voice deserves to be heard. After all, that's why Are You Annie is here. When you share your story, you're not just speaking for yourself. You are opening the door for another Annie to feel comfortable listening and speaking out. Are You Annie is for anyone who needs validation and support. It's about us walking through fire together to reach the other side of narcissistic abuse. It's about reclaiming the pieces of who you are and stepping back into your truth and to your power. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. And if you like this episode, hit the like button because it will help another Annie who may need to hear this story, may help her find us. Now, I know I don't know you personally, but I believe I know your story because I know Annie and I know her story. Now, of course, the details are going to be different, but the patterns, they are so similar. If you see any part of yourself in Annie's journey, just know that you aren't alone, that we're here for you. And I want you to remember that you're not just a survivor, you are a warrior against narcissistic abuse. And I want you to be tenacious and never give up on what you believe in and what you think is important. Thank you for listening. Let's continue this journey together. I see you and I appreciate you. Thank you so much.